Welcome back to the Listen Podcast YouTube channel, everybody. Today we're diving deep into a topic you specifically requested,
Oh, cool.
the psychology of regret.
Okay.
And to add a little ink to the mix, we're exploring it through the lens of tattoos.
Interesting.
Yeah, this article we dug up, The Tattoo Dilemma. Regret in the face of action or inaction really got us thinking.
Yeah.
It talks about how we often regret the things we don't do
Right.
more than the things we do,
Hmm.
which seems a little counterintuitive, right?
It is, yeah. It's called the regret paradox.
Okay.
And it all boils down to how our brains process decisions and emotions over time.
Okay, unpack that for us.
Sure.
Why would we regret inaction more in the long run?
Well, when we make a decision, especially a visible one, like getting a tattoo, there's often that initial wave of, did I do the right thing? We might feel a pang of regret, especially if it doesn't meet our expectations.
It's like, oh no, that dolphin tattoo doesn't make me look like a majestic sea creature after all.
Precisely. But here's the thing. Our brains are wired to adapt. We rationalize our choices, tell ourselves stories,
Right.
and eventually the sting of that regret fades.
And we're like, yep, that's my questionable dolphin tattoo.
Right.
It represents a time I clearly shouldn't have been allowed near a tattoo parlor.
Exactly. It becomes part of your narrative.
Yeah,
But with inaction, that what if lingers.
right.
We haven't actually experienced the outcome, so our imaginations run wild with all the possibilities,
Yeah.
both good and bad.
So instead of a funny dolphin tattoo story,
Right.
we're left with years of, what if I gotten that tattoo?
Yeah.
Would I look amazing with a dragon on my bicep?
And those what ifs can be powerful fuel for regret.
Okay.
We tend to overestimate the intensity and duration of our future emotions, both positive and negative.
You mean like how I was convinced that getting my ears pierced in middle school would be the most painful experience of my life?
Yeah,
But it turned out to be a walk in the park compared to that time I tried to cut my own hair.
exactly. Our brains are great at imagining the worst case scenario, but not so great at predicting how we'll actually feel down the line. And that's where the tattoo metaphor gets really interesting.
Okay.
It's not just about the physical act of getting inked, it's about what tattoos represent.
Right.
Self-expression, permanence, and often a bit of rebellion.
Right. Like, Mom, Dad, I'm getting this butterfly tattoo to show you I'm a free spirit who can fly away at any moment. Proceeds to move back in with parents 6 months later.
Exactly. But, jokes aside, tattoos historically have been about so much more than aesthetics.
Right.
They've signified tribal affiliations, spiritual beliefs, social status,
Wow.
things deeply tied to our identities.
Which makes the decision to get one feel even weightier.
Yeah,
It's like, this isn't just a doodle on my ankle, it's a declaration of who I am. Or at least who I was when I thought tribal tattoos were cool.
and that's where cultural factors come into play, too.
Yeah.
Even today, with tattoos becoming more mainstream, they still carry a certain weight, a potential for judgment, or even stigma, depending on the design and the cultural context.
So not only are we trying to predict how we'll feel about this tattoo in the future,
Right.
we're also factoring in how others might perceive it.
Exactly.
No wonder we get decision paralysis.
It's a lot to process. The article actually mentions that this is a big part of why tattoos are such a fitting lens through which to explore regret. They embody this tension between our individual desires and societal expectations.
It's like this tiny little tattoo suddenly becomes a microcosm for all the big life choices we make.
Right.
Career changes, relationships,
Yeah.
you name it. We're constantly weighing our own aspirations against what we think we should be doing or who we think we should be.
And that's where understanding the regret paradox can be so liberating.
Okay.
Because if we're more likely to regret the things we don't do, maybe it's a sign to be a little bolder, a little less risk-averse in our decision-making.
So channel our inner YOLO spirit. Get that tattoo, ask that person out, finally start that underwater basket weaving business we've been dreaming of.
Well, maybe hold off on the underwater basket weaving.
Okay.
But the point is, often what we regret most isn't the choices we made, but the chances we didn't take. The experiences we let fear hold us back from.
It's like that saying, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Right.
Except in this case, it's more like you experience 100% of the regret from the chances you don't take.
Exactly. And the interesting thing is this whole idea of regret and even what we consider to be regrettable can vary drastically from person to person, culture to culture.
It's true. What might be a source of pride for one person could be a source of, oh God, why? For another.
Exactly.
Like my grandma's prized possession is her collection of ceramic frogs.
Yeah.
Me. I'd probably regret inheriting that. But hey, Different stories for different folks. Right.
Precisely. And that's where things get even more nuanced, especially when we consider how societal norms around tattoos have evolved.
Ooh, tell me more about that. I'm all ears. And hopefully someday a tasteful tattoo of a dragon on one of them.
Well, what was once seen as taboo or rebellious,
Right, yeah.
especially for certain generations, is now seen as a form of self-expression, even artistry.
It's like how our grandparents probably thought bell-bottoms were scandalous.
Right,
And now we're all rocking mom jeans like it's 1998 again.
right.
Fashion is a fickle beast, and so is our perception of what's considered regrettable.
And with tattoos becoming more commonplace, especially among younger generations,
Yeah.
we see this fascinating shift where the potential for regret might lie more in not getting a desired tattoo than in getting one.
Wait, really? So instead of fearing the permanence of the tattoo, some people fear the permanence of not getting one. That's a wild thought.
It is, and it goes to show how much our values and what we prioritize in terms of self-expression have changed.
Right.
The fear of standing out, of making a bold statement, might now be replaced with the fear of blending in, of letting those opportunities for self-expression pass us by.
That's a really interesting point. It's like the script has flipped.
Yeah.
So what does that mean for someone like our listener who's wrestling with this very decision right now? Should they throw caution to the wind and just go for it?
Well, as with any major life decision, there's no one-size-fits-all answer.
Right.
But understanding the psychology of regret, this regret paradox,
Yeah.
can give us a new framework for approaching these choices.
So instead of letting the fear of regret paralyze us,
Right.
we can use it as a springboard for action.
Exactly. It's about acknowledging that regret is a natural part of the human experience.
Yeah,
We're all going to experience it at some point.
that's true.
The key is to not let it dictate our choices,
Okay.
but rather to use it as an opportunity for reflection and growth.
So instead of asking ourselves, will I regret this? Maybe the question should be, what will I learn from this, regardless of the outcome?
That's a great way to reframe it, because ultimately it's not about avoiding regret altogether. That's impossible.
Right.
It's about making choices that align with our values, our aspirations, and yes, even our sense of adventure.
So if our listener is out there thinking, maybe a tiny tattoo of a dragon whispering wisdom into my ear would make me happy.
Then maybe it's time to explore that thought a little further.
Yeah.
Talk to trusted friends, do your research, find a reputable artist.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, even if your taste changes down the line, that tattoo will always represent a time in your life,
Right.
a decision you made, a story you chose to tell.
It becomes a part of your journey, your own personal tapestry, as we were saying earlier.
Exactly. And sometimes those seemingly small decisions, like getting a tattoo,
Yeah.
can have a ripple effect on our lives.
Right.
They can give us a boost of confidence, help us embrace our individuality,
Yeah.
even lead us down unexpected paths.
Like you decide to get that tiny dragon tattoo, and suddenly you're hanging out with a whole crew of awesome tattoo enthusiasts, learning how to train your pet iguana to breathe fire, and writing a screenplay about a magical dragon who opens a tattoo parlor in a sleepy seaside town.
Well, that escalated quickly.
Yeah.
But you see my point.
I do.
Sometimes the most rewarding choices are the ones that scare us a little, the ones that take us outside our comfort zones.
And even if that dragon tattoo does end up being a source of, what was I thinking? Later on, at least you'll have a great story to tell.
Exactly. And a story that's uniquely yours.
That's true.
So to our listener who inspired this deep dive into the psychology of regret, we hope you feel a little more equipped to navigate that tattoo decision, or any decision for that matter, with a little more self-awareness and maybe even a sense of humor.
Because let's be real, life's too short to let the fear of a little regret hold us back from potentially awesome dragons, or whatever it is that sparks our soul.
Well said. Embrace the unknown, make those bold choices. And remember, we're all on this messy, beautiful, occasionally inked up journey together.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
This has been such a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insights.
The pleasure was all mine. Always enjoy a good deep dive into the human psyche, especially with a side of ink.
And to all our amazing listeners out there, thank you for tuning in. We hope you learned a thing or two about regret, decision-making, and maybe even discovered a newfound appreciation for the art of tattoos.
Here.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and remember, sometimes the best stories are written in permanent ink.